Aleichem, we are learning the Sikha Breishis Aleph, and the first Sikha in the series of Chelik Tezvav till Yutes, and it's a Sikha that the Rebbe said in Tafshin Chaf Hey at the end of 1964, literally a few weeks after the passing of his mother, Rebbe Tzimchana, seemingly still within the Shleishim. And it really gets to the heart of the role of Torah. So let's try to summarize what the Sikha says and then hopefully unpack it a drop. Spoke about the three explanations on why the Torah starts at Beis and not Aleph, and fundamentally the one Nekuda. What's the Nekuda? That understanding and learning Torah is number two. Number one is iskashtus to the giver of the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is beyond intellectualism. And the famous Berach B'Torah Tchila that you have to remember to have the bracha of the Torah first. And this is expressed in three different ways. In regards to Torah itself, that you shouldn't be separated from Alikus, similar to Olam Abriya, which is the beginning, Olam Abriya, the second of four worlds, which is the beginning of separation. Not Silus, it's all Eitzel, it's all next to Hashem. But Briya, there's already a beginning, obviously not the level of separation that we have, but some sort of separation. So we should be like Olam Atzilus Achdus. That's regarding the Torah itself. Then is regarding the learner, the subject, the subjective person, that his learning should not be in a way of loy zacha, which is aleph lashon hadida, but rather in a way of zacha nasis loy samchaim. It should be a source of life, beis lashon bracha. And in regarding to the Welt, that through that you fix this world, you complete the world, and that is dafka by limud of Bnei Yisrael, that we fix the world by learning with an awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However, in the Targum HaTorah to Talmai, that began in Aleph, that starts with the letter Aleph, because by Umas Ha'olam, by the nations of the world, limud is only leidas ha'maisa sheyasum and not for limud HaTorah itself. So I just want to unpack one or two things. First of all, this famous story of Talmai HaMelech, when did it take place? It took place, Talmai was actually a Greek king. In English, it's Ptolemy with a silent P at the beginning. There were many Ptolemies, and the short version of the history is that after Alexander pretty much conquered a lot of Europe all the way into Asia and in the Middle East, he died, and his kingdom was split up into many parts. And besides the Greek Empire, which was actually in Greece, there were two other empires. One was the Northern Empire, and that is where the Hanukkah story takes place. The Hanukkah story takes place when the Northern Empire was in charge of Israel. And then there was a Southern Empire, Egypt and below. And there was constantly battles between the kings in the north and the kings in the south. And at different times, Eretz Yisrael was conquered between the two. And there was a stage when Israel was under the dominion of the southern kingdom. And that is when Talmai HaMelech asked the Yidden, 71 sages to translate the Torah. And the Gemara tells us a story that the day that the Torah was translated in Teves was a dark day for Am Yisrael. It was the first time the Torah was ever translated outside of the Lashon HaShuris, outside of Lashon HaKodesh, and it was a big deal. And the Chachamim all made similar changes, even though they were all in different rooms, because he was making sure that they don't have, plot together to conveniently change translations. They all made similar translations. One of the translations was that there was a certain kind of non-kosher animal that in Greek would translate as his wife's name, so therefore they made a different translation. But it's important to understand the context, why in the world the Jewish people are translating in Greek in Egypt, because it was a Greek empire at the time in Egypt. And the Rebbe has a whole sikha and a different part look at the sikhas about the downside and the upside of that translation and what it led to. But fundamentally, the first change they made is they wrote Elikim Bara Breishis. What I've been trying to struggle is, if they translated in Greek, then what does it mean they put the Aleph before the base? It wasn't literally Aleph before the base. Even if they wrote Hebrew letters, it was still Greek words. So who says Elikim is Aleph in Greek? So obviously, it's more the implication, at least that's my understanding. Feel free to disagree. But the implication of them using the word Elikim, bara Breishis, and the reason they did it is because they didn't want him to think that Breishis is a being who created Hashem. So they wrote it in a way that Elikim bara Breishis goes in that cycle. But that it's really an aleph. I'll be honest, I'm not sure exactly how that plays out in a literal sense. But fundamentally, what's the message of the thing? That's when we come out of Simchas Torah. The message of Simchas Torah is that we are connected with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's our Torah. So Mirz Hashem, as we start another year of Project Look at the Sichos, and please God, Mirz Hashem, we go through all these 5 halakim. We're going to do the same halakim because there's usually 5 sichos per parsha. So we're going to do Chelik Tezvav, Tezayin, Yitzayin, Ches, Yotes. Over the coming year, it should be with incredible atzlacha, and Bercha B'Torah Tchila, we should always remember that it's who the Noisen HaTorah is. For Vemen Mensteht, Vumen Steht, and for Vemen Mensteht, as they used to announce by the Rebbe's Tkiyas. Where we're standing and in front of who we're standing.